on Tuesdays and on Sundays, I have a message that is somewhat instructional, and it is encouraging, and it is empowering. Today, my message is just a little bit different, still encouraging, still empowering, but the message is more so prophetic. Over the course of the last couple of days, I have sensed this desperate need to hear God. That there are many of us that are in this position of needing to know what's next, where some of you are holding on in the balance, and there comes this place where you have held on for so long that you get exhausted and you become tired. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and we were talking, my best friend actually, and I was sharing with him. I said, the scripture tells us that a heart where there is hope that has been deferred becomes sick. When we are waiting for a very long period of time for an answer, or we are waiting for a very long period of time for God to reveal, or for God to change, or to make something happen, there comes a point of time that you can become weary in well doing. And the scripture has to remind us, do not become weary in well doing, because God is very well aware that we are human. And by our nature, um, after a period of time of not seeing progress or not seeing change, we can become weary. And so this message today is prophetic in nature, because I need to share with you today that the season will change. There is a scripture in the book of Ecclesiastes, and it is chapter number 3 of Ecclesiastes, where it talks about there is a time for everything under the sun. Exactly the words, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. It goes on to say that there is a time to be born, and then there's a time to die. There's a time to plant, and there's a time to uproot. There's a time to kill, and there's a time to heal. There's a time to tear down, and there's a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. That helps us to understand that the season that you may be in right now, where you are waiting, the season that you may be in right now, that you are praying for something to happen, for something to abruptly change, that time will come. When we look back in the history of all of the scriptures, we will see this timeline in various individuals' lives. And usually there is a time where the person is sent through some obstacle course or some trouble. And then we see where they come out of that trouble. We can look at Moses, that was sent into the piper's basket. And we all know the story of Moses, and how there was a decree where all of the boys were killed, and his mother decided to protect him, to save him, and to send him in a piper's basket. And then he was lifted up out of the water. Even his name means to draw out. And he was lifted into the palace with Pharaoh. And God allowed his life to take on a different form. We also see in this same man's life that there were various instances where there was a struggle between who he was and who he was becoming. We look at Joseph. We can see in the scriptures with Joseph how his brothers sold him. And in that moment, of that darkest moment of his life, where he was sold and put into prison, he eventually was elevated to the place of position of power. We see this countless numbers of times with the man that was on the mat, and how his friends had to bring him. He started in a downward position, and then he was healed. We see this with the woman that had the issue of blood, where she struggled very hard with this issue of blood for over 12 years, where she spent all of her money and she tried different doctors and nothing was happening. We see this with Ruth and with Naomi, where the husband was lost, and there was a moment where they thought nothing was going to happen, and then God allowed her to meet Boaz. We see this with Esther. We see this with so many different characters in the Bible where their stories reveal that there were moments that were very dark for them. We see this with David, where his brothers and even Saul did not consider him. He was one that was kind of pushed off. Why do I bring all of this up to you today? Well, this message will not be long, but this message is prophetic in nature to reveal to you that where you are right now will not last. That there is a time that you're going to wonder, God, where are you? I think that every individual that has ever walked the face of this earth and that does walk the face of this earth has these moments where they are asking, God, where are you? And it is in those moments by looking in the scriptures and by looking now in people's lives where we can see a very similar pattern that there are always moments prior to breakthrough that seem to be the lowest moments or the most difficult moments. I was looking at a post the other day that revealed so many different businesses from Twitter to Google to Amazon, and how each of those businesses, even Facebook, how each of those businesses started from a very low point. Some of those businesses, people failed multiple times before they finally arrived to where they are now. When we look at the story of Oprah Winfrey, and when we look at the story of so many various celebrities, while I don't praise them, I look at those stories and we can see a similar pattern in their lives where there was a moment of being down and then they were elevated. I look at the story of my grandparents and how they were married for over 70 some odd years. And I would listen to stories of how they struggled in the beginning of their marriage and how they fussed and they fought and they went through all different types of things as they were raising their children. And then towards the latter part of their marriage, my grandfather would always call his grandmother his girlfriend. And they would hold hands, and it would be so cute to watch them do these things. But they had to go through this moment. My I call her my grandmother. She's actually my cousin, my big ma. Used to always make this statement to me, and it resonates with me even as of today. If you don't have no fight, it ain't right. Where you are and what you are going through is building character. And what you're experiencing and even wanting God to change, sometimes God will not change it because he knows what it needs to build inside of you. Ultimately, God knows where you're going. And he has made a promise concerning you and your life. And that promise is that you will prosper and that you will win in the end. And I understand that looking at what you are faced with head on in some instances, whether it is a marriage that seems to be rocky, whether it is a financial situation, which it seems that no matter what you do, you just can't seem to get above or ahead, whether it's a job that you are putting everything into and it seems as though for some reason or another, other people are being recognized and being exalted, whether it is social media and you are trying to plug away doing what God said do and it seems like nothing is happening. I want to remind you today of my story. It was some 15 years ago, maybe even 16 years ago, where I recall driving to an old country church that I was pastoring. And this church did not have heat, it did not have air, and the walls were paper thin. And I remember one winter, it was snow on the ground and it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I had needed to go to this church in order to turn the heat on at 5 o'clock so that we could have service around 8:30 or 9. I needed the building to warm up, and I had to put so many heaters in this building in order to warm it up so that the parishioners would come in some form of warmth. It still would not be completely warm because there was no insulation in the building. I remember that I would go into this building at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was deep in the woods. I would go into the bathroom and I would have to clean the bathroom. I remember one day, one morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, I was leaning over the toilet stool and I had on these gloves and I was cleaning the toilet stool out, and the building was so cold that my fingers were freezing. And I remember crying that morning over top of the toilet as I was trying to clean it. And I said, why am I doing this? Does this even matter? There's going to be 20 people here. Does this even matter? I remember cleaning that church up, being freezing cold, going back home and packing up the equipment that we would need that morning, which were the speakers, the keyboard, the drums inside of a little small Honda Accord, and then having to drive back to the church and set up all of the equipment so that I could lead praise and worship and pray, and it was going to be to the same 20 people. I remember then after that greeting all of the people after church and hugging them and then packing the stuff back up just to go back home and do it all over again. And I felt like there was absolutely no reason why I was having to keep doing this, because I was giving it my all and I was doing what I believe God wanted me to do. And this went on for years. Our church began to grow, and I still was finding myself having to deal with processes and do things that did not seem to matter. And now I look at where I am now, and I do not consider myself to be some great wonder. I do not consider myself to be a very popular person, though some people may say that. But what I can certainly see is that I was sowing seeds then. What I can see is that years ago, that those moments where I cried over that freezing cold toilet stool, that I was sowing seeds in my life that would be revealed in a season that was yet to come. That now if I don't receive comments, or if people never say anything to the messages that I post, that it doesn't bother me, because I've had moments where no one showed up. I've had moments that I've given my everything and nothing has prevailed from it, seemingly to what I felt at that moment. You may be in that position right now, that you feel like there is absolutely no reason that you're having to keep forgiving, that you're having to keep humbling yourself, that you're having to keep going, that you're having to keep doing whatever it is that you're doing. Maybe you're trying to reach a person and you've been praying for them, and it seems to be that nothing is changing. Maybe you keep trying to have a conversation in your relationship and you keep trying to express your feelings, and it seems like nothing is happening. Maybe you've been working on a business in the background and you've been trying to pull it together, and maybe you don't have all of the resources, but you keep pulling, and you haven't even revealed to anyone the difficulty of actually making things last or work that you've been experiencing. Maybe it's on a job right now that you feel like, I keep showing up and giving my all and no one is recognizing it. But to you, I want to share with you that God sees you, and that every single thing that you do, it absolutely does matter. That there are parts of this process that require for you to work in darkness in the backside of the desert. But there absolutely is a day that reward will come to you. There is absolutely a day that all of the things that you have put in will come back multiplied to you. That everything you do, it absolutely does matter. That God will reward you. Even the individuals that you have gone through relationships that you feel like you gave everything and then the relationship ended. God has saved the best for last. That's my message for you today. God is saving the best for last, and that sometimes the delay is protecting you from things that you would have walked into that would have destroyed your life, and that God has to protect you sometimes. That everything that you have served and everything that you have done and every person that you have forgiven and been kind to and closed your mouth when you wanted to say something, that each of those things have mattered. That's the message today, that it matters. And it absolutely will be rewarded to you. God is not a God that lies. He is not a God that fails us. And while you may feel in a place right this very moment of brokenness, I am hoping to reach to and speak to your soul, to tell your soul, be encouraged. Weeping endures for a night, joy does come in the morning. That there is a bright side somewhere. Things do change, stories do get better. And just because you have not seen it yet does not mean that it won't happen, because I'm here to promise you it absolutely will. Things will get better. I want to thank you for being a part of my family. I want to thank each and every one of you for connecting with me weekly, daily, for sharing things that I have put out into this earth to be shared. And this message is the same. I'm asking for you to share this with someone that may be down, that may be struggling, that may be asking the question, God, where are you? He's right there with you. While you can't see him, he's definitely behind the scenes. Thank you so much for jumping in. Thank you for those of you all that weekly send messages to me to encourage me. I appreciate you. Thank you to every single subscriber. Thank you to every single one of our partners that sow on a weekly basis. For the next couple of weeks, I'm going to continue to pray strategically over each of our partners. And maybe you want to consider being a partner. There is a link somewhere in one of the bios. Please click on that link today, and you can partner with us and you can sow with us. Maybe you need prayer, and if that is the case, then our team prays every Thursday. We would love to pray for you and for your family. Thank you for jumping in. Thank you for watching. It's going to get better.